I keep reptiles because I love keeping reptiles, but there are certain things I really don't like about it. So, today let's go over the top 5 things I hate about keeping reptiles and how you can make those things not that bad. My name's Adam, this is Diamond, you're watching Wickens Wicked Reptiles, stick around. To clarify, I don't want this to be a negative Nancy, these are all the bad things, this is why you shouldn't keep reptiles, or anything like that. I'm just bringing light to the 5 things that I dislike most about keeping reptiles and what I do to avoid or circumvent or have workarounds. Anyway, let's just get right to it. Number 5, smell of poop. And smell of reptiles in general. Now this might seem ridiculous and obvious, but if you have a large collection like I do, you're gonna notice it. You know when you walk into someone's house and it has that distinct odor? Well, some people who have lots of reptiles, it's not a very pleasant one and you notice as soon as you walk in. And this might be you, unless, well, there's a few things you can do to go around this. First thing first, this is just basic husbandry. Always scoop poop every day when you go in your reptile room. Just have the scooper ready, have a garbage can ready, and scoop poop. And what I do, we have a compost type of collection system here where I live. So I get these small collection bags for the compost, and I just use them, tie them up, and throw them in the big compost bin because all of this is not bad for the environment as it would be if you're using plastic bags. At the end of the day, you're trying to get rid of the poop in the most reasonable way possible, and the efficient way to do it is just every day take out what poop is there. Now, if you're someone who doesn't want to do this, I get that. Another great way is to use bioactive enclosures as much as possible. So things like my blue tongue skink or even Franny my boa, I have isopods and I have springtails in there as well to kind of act as a cleanup crew. So I still do spot clean, but if there's a little bit of a urate that I didn't see because it's behind the water dish in the corner, whatever, I know that it's not going to be a big deal because when you stick your nose into these enclosures, they smell earthy. Right? Even if you stick your nose into an enclosure like a ball python enclosure that just pooped yesterday, it's gonna smell a little bit poopy.
My poop is coming!
But all of a sudden you put your cleanup crew in there and you put a nice drainage layer and the whole thing to make it bioactive, and it smells like you're going for a walk in the woods. Bioactive enclosures are getting very, very popular. If you'd like to see me make one, I have made quite a few. Put a comment below, let me know, and if enough of you want it, I'll make it for sure. Another thing you can do is use something like a HEPA air filter, something like an air purifier, a very good one, not one of the cheap ones, and they actually do work quite well. There's a few different ones that I use. I'm going to feature one of them in an episode a few weeks from now, so hit subscribe if you haven't already. I just think that these actually make it pretty easy to keep the smell down, even if you're kind of behind on the poop scooping, which you should never be, but you get what I'm saying, right? Just a little bit of extra help to make the smell not bad, because you can't use things like air fresheners or incense or scented candles. Like, you can't use perfumes and stuff like that, so you have to use a neutralizer rather than a cover-upper. Oh yeah, and baking soda works too. I just got baking soda like all over. So anyway, my reptile room actually smells pretty dandy. Pretty dandy.
In the vicinity of dandyhood.
Number 4, a more obvious one, cost. Oh my goodness, it is not cheap keeping as many reptiles as I keep. Even if you keep, say, I don't know, 3 or 4, 1, it might not be as cheap as you thought in the first place. And I did a whole video right here about how to save money with keeping reptiles. I just did that a few weeks ago. And I think that the feedback was kind of surprising, just because I've been in the hobby for so long.
It's been 84 years.
I know a lot of these tricks, and it's kind of surprising to me when people don't know them because they seem so obvious. Because someone else told me. So as soon as someone tells you, it's just like an aha moment. Things like buy your bulbs at the hardware store, not UVB, but your basking bulbs. You can buy halogen lights at the hardware store or even the dollar store for 50 waters, or you can buy your substrate from a hardware store, right? Things like organic coconut materials, coconut core and coconut husk and things like that. Play sand as well. You can buy all that at the hardware store, where it's going to be a third or a quarter of the price or a fifth of the price in some cases as the one that has a picture of a gecko on it. The only reason it's more expensive is because it has a picture of a gecko on it. and that doesn't make it any better. Another really easy way to get around the ridiculous costs, and I'll point to one more card right here, that's how much it costs to keep my entire collection. You can guess in the comment section before you watch the video. It's kind of staggering how much a year I pay just for upkeep, but what you can do in order to get around that is things like buy in bulk. Buy local is another great one, which is kind of surprising. You'd be surprised how many people in your area probably breed rats in their basement. So instead of going to PetSmart or even your local reptile shop and paying $4, $5, $6 for a rat, you could get one for $2.50 if you buy in bulk, 10 at a time or even more from your friendly local breeds rats in his basement guy. And even if you don't have one of these guys, just buy off-brand. Buy your water bowls from the dollar store. It doesn't need to be a pretty rock thing that you paid 12 bucks for at PetSmart. Like, come on. Buy something that is more reasonable, that looks just as good from the dollar store. Or buy something that doesn't look as good because you don't care, because you have them in racks or a big collection, and you don't mind seeing a purple water bowl, you know? Just buy things from the hardware store and the dollar store. Anyway, if you want more information about this, I pointed to the card. Let's move on. Oh, and just before we do, we're really close to 100,000 subscribers, and we're giving away 10 free shirts. All you gotta do to enter, subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave this emoji so I know that you watched this part of it, and like the Instagram account. If I pick you, I'll send you a shirt. Okay, let's move on. Number 3, and something that is unavoidable a lot of the time, mites. Now this is especially true if you have a bigger collection and you're bringing in a lot of supplies, because sometimes mites can be hiding on the supplies.
You dirty little pinchy.
And I know there are going to be some people in these Facebook groups and in the comments maybe who are just kind of clueless, and they'll say things like, well, there's always ways to avoid this. There's not. Sometimes it just happens, no matter how careful you are. And I'm talking about something as simple as you go to a reptile store and you pick up mites there on your clothing and you bring them back to your house, or in your bedding. Something like you buy a thing of aspen, right? A bag of aspen that was sitting in a place that was contaminated with snake mites. Well, the snake mites might have laid eggs in there, or there might be active snake mites in there, and then you throw it in. So here's what I do. Recently, because I have a large freezer, I've been freezing my bedding, and this has happened to me, luckily in a quarantine container, which is another thing you should do, always. Always quarantine your animals when you bring them home. If you go and buy a brand new ball python, or you get one, you adopt one, whatever, make sure you have a different room in your house away from your reptiles so that you can quarantine it and you can check. Put it on a white paper towel. That's what I do. This is my advice only. Do your research. This isn't the end-all be-all of quarantining. But what I do is I put a very simple enclosure, a hide, a hotspot, something like that, white paper towel, and a water bowl. And that way, first of all, if the snake goes in the water bowl, something's wrong. And then on the white paper towel, you can see the mites. So it's a very quick fix, right? Now I have made videos about mites, and if you do get them, what to do. I'll put that in the description below. But it just seems like one of those things that no matter how careful you are, someone comes over, or you buy, I don't know, a few tubs or something like that from someone else, and they might have mites or mite eggs. And that's the thing, is sometimes the mite eggs take a few weeks to turn into mites that you see and kind of breed and create a problem big enough that you notice. The reason I'm going so gung-ho about it's not your fault is because I want you to know that sometimes it's not your fault. You can do all of these things, freeze the bedding, do your quarantine preventative treatment, which is what I do. I used to use Preventamite, now I've used ivermectin, which you have to get at a vet. Just go to your vet and tell them why. You mix it up with water. It's much safer and it's cheaper as well. But even if you do all the right things, it can still happen to you. You're still a human. You can forget to freeze a bag or whatever. You can, by accident, try to feed your animal in quarantine and bring the rat down. And, oh no, I shouldn't, you know what I mean? There are certain things, okay, you get the point. Number 2, kind of alluded to earlier, the toxic community. Now, I'll be very clear. Most of our reptile keeping friends and peers, I guess, are awesome people. Most people who keep reptiles want to help each other, and we are really a great community. And then you get on Facebook and you realize there's a whole other side to this community, which are just a bunch of children fighting. This is the, I call them cage Karens, right? These are the ones who look at your picture of your ball python in your 120-gallon enclosure. You're giving them this beautiful planted vivarium with lots of hiding spots. And then someone who started keeping reptiles in 1992 and read their last care sheet in 1992 is going to tell you, well, you should be keeping that thing in a tub because it's going to get scared and it's stressed. And in the wild, they only have paper towel as bedding. shedding, so you giving it loose substrate is gonna, like, these are the people you need to stay as far away from as humanly possible. Especially if you're new. New people get scared away by these people so often, and it's so sad to see. It's just you get a bad taste in your mouth right away. Now, I did a whole video last year about the toxic reptile community. It got a lot of really good feedback, and I appreciate all of you who took the time to watch it. Here's how you can get away from this side of the hobby, which, by the way, no matter what hobby you're in, fitness or dirt bikes, or it doesn't matter. There's these people in every type of community, but in the reptile community, we're caring for animals, so people get pretty aggressive. And here's how you stay away from it. Join groups that are positive. And I know it's hard to tell, but things like my Discord channel, the Reptile Room, there's a link in the description below. Everybody is super cool there. The admin channel in that group knows to yeet these cage Karens into outer space immediately. We don't tolerate that. There's other groups on Facebook too. Positive Pythons is another one. It's just you gotta know which ones to go to and stay away from, and just kind of latch yourself to people that have been in the community for a long time who actually wanna help rather than just showing how much they know. Because at the end of the day, that's all it is just a you-know-what measuring competition that makes me laugh so hard it is ridiculous.
You're like, I'm getting my day started.
I'll read these comments sometimes, and the most annoying sounds on the face of the earth come out of me. I laugh so hard. Okay, that's enough. Just avoid the cage Karens and you'll be good. And number one thing I hate about keeping reptiles, death. Now this is one I don't actually have a workaround for. Well, sort of. And what I mean is just animals dying happens. It happens. If you keep reptiles, they don't show sickness a lot of the time. Sometimes they do, of course, obviously, but sometimes they just drop dead. That is a thing that happens with reptiles. Cancers or other sicknesses that you don't notice because reptiles don't show vocalizations and they don't show like a cat or a dog would a lot of the times. So sometimes animals just die. Now, obviously, if you see signs and you see something happening, take your animal to a vet, obviously. But I think ways to get around are just, or circumvent it as best you can. Just take the best care of your reptiles that you possibly can and keep learning about reptiles. Don't be one of these guys who reads something in 1990 and then never updates his care. The amount of people I see all the time where I show diamonds enclosure where I have a very safe loose substrate mixture of play sand, which is completely safe, and a dried out type of soil coconut core mixture, 100% safe. And there's still people who are using 1980s care guys to tell me that he's gonna die of impaction. No, he's not. Keep learning is the best way to avoid untimely deaths to the best you can, because at the end of the day, it's unavoidable to a certain extent. It just happens. So I want to tell you that it's, again, not your fault. And I think with that, we'll end the video. That is such like a bummer way to go. The entire point of the video was no matter what, there are going to be things in every hobby, every facet of life that kind of suck. It's kind of a pain to do or to deal with, but there are ways to get around it. And we should always look at things in a positive light, especially keeping animals. They're real living beings, and guys like Diamond deserve the best care and a smile on your face when you're dealing with them, which is what I have every time I walk into the reptile room, and I want you to feel just as happy when working with reptiles. So I think that's it. I want to say thanks to everyone who watched the video. Please hit like and subscribe if you enjoy videos like this, and a special thank you to the Patreon supporters. You guys are freaking amazing. You guys know about this new animal that I just got that I'm not going to talk about on the channel for a little while. You get discounts on the merch, extra videos. I put an extra video that was Patreon only last week. I hope you enjoyed it. For as little as $1 a month, you can be part of the Patreon crew. All right, that's it. I think I've plugged absolutely everything. I will see you on Thursday.